Chapter 8. Summary and Analysis. New character, Mr. Kenneth, the local doctor. Summary. It is now 1778. Nellie's work in the hayfield is interrupted by the news that Frances has just given birth to Hareton, although the doctor believes that Frances' chronic tuberculosis, foreshadowed by Nellie's mention of her coughing in Chapter 6, will shortly kill her. Rushing back to the house so that she can begin to care for the infant, Nellie finds both Hindley and Frances in desperate denial of Frances' condition. Despite her brave efforts, Frances soon dies, leaving Hindley disconsolate. Sinking into depression and alcoholism, Hindley takes no interest in Hareton, other than to object when his cries disturb him. While Hindley's dissipation worsens, and his treatment of Heathcliff grows even crueler, Heathcliff takes a perverse pleasure in watching Hindley deteriorate. In fact, the entire household completely falls apart. All the servants, except for Nellie and Joseph, leave, and no one, not even the curate, will visit. Catherine, however, has remained friendly with the Lintons and continues to visit them. She begins to, quote, adopt a double character, unquote, remaining unruly and wild at home, but at the Lintons' home she is a model young lady. At 15, she is the most beautiful girl in the countryside, and Edgar is smitten with her. Edgar prefers her to visit at the Grange rather than come to the Heights. Hindley's profligate reputation frightens him, and he remains disgusted by Catherine's friendship with the socially unacceptable Heathcliff. One afternoon when Hindley is away, Heathcliff ventures into the parlour to see Catherine. He appears to Catherine, who now holds different social standards, as unschooled and lacking in social graces. This makes her uncomfortable to see him and heightens her awareness of Edgar's suitability. When it becomes apparent that Heathcliff has no intention of leaving, she finally admits that she is expecting Edgar and suggests he leave to avoid Hindley's punishment. Heathcliff complains that she has been neglecting him for Edgar, showing her a calendar marked with the many evenings she has spent with the Lintons. They exchange angry words, and as he leaves, Edgar enters. Ordered by Hindley to stay within earshot when Edgar visits, Nellie remains in the room, dusting. When she refuses Catherine's demand for her to leave, Catherine creates an outburst. Edgar is appalled to see Catherine pinch Nellie and then lie to him about it. Then, at the height of her tantrum, Catherine hits baby Hareton and then Edgar himself. Shocked to witness this unforeseen side of her nature, Edgar begins to leave the room, with Nellie warning him of his luck, quote, to have a glimpse of her genuine disposition, unquote. Edgar's resolution to leave lasts only as long as it takes him to walk outdoors. Nellie again encourages him to avoid Catherine, a, quote, dreadfully wayward, unquote, girl, but she notes that Edgar is too besotted with her to leave. He is doomed to love her, despite the differences in their natures. He returns to Catherine's room and shuts the door. When Nellie comes in later to tell them that Hindley has arrived, she perceives that the quarrel has brought them closer. News of Hindley's arrival has an urgent effect on everyone. Edgar swiftly mounts his horse. Catherine takes to her room, and Nellie, hiding baby Hareton, takes the bullets out of Hindley's gun. Discussion and analysis. Despite her care in appearing a conventional gentlewoman while in the Lintons' company, Catherine's true nature is revealed to Edgar. Since he is a product of his social class, a typical gentry gentleman, he is repulsed by her outward display of emotion. However, he is irresistibly attracted to her. He is, in fact, as Nellie says, quote, doomed, unquote. The use of this term foreshadows Edgar's fate. Even if he can satisfy his love by marrying Catherine, he is doomed to unhappiness with her, for their natures make them unsuitable companions. Unable to be passionate, Edgar can only be loving and gentle, traits which are viewed by Catherine as weaknesses, and, notwithstanding the attraction of social convention, Catherine is unable to repress her passionate selfishness. In this chapter, Bronte introduces her theme of the divided self, the conflict between natural instincts, as exemplified by Catherine, and social values, as portrayed by Edgar. Both are at once attracted to and repelled by the other, a combination that, while inevitable, will prove disastrous. Chapter 9. Summary and Analysis. Summary. Little Hareton, terrified of his father's rages, allows Nelly to hide him when Hindley makes his drunken entrance. Claiming to have already murdered Mr. Kenneth, Hindley threatens to kill Nelly as well. Clearly accustomed to dealing with Hindley's behaviour, Nelly calmly eludes his knife. Hindley, however, grabs Hareton, and when he cannot calm the trembling child, he becomes enraged and dangles him feet first over the stair rail. Startled by Heathcliff's entrance, Hindley loses his grip and drops the baby. Without realizing what he is doing, Heathcliff holds out his arms and catches Hareton, saving him from death. Nelly notes the look of disappointment on Heathcliff's face. His unwitting heroism cost him the chance to get revenge on Hindley. As Nelly rocks poor Hareton to sleep, Catherine enters to confide to her that Edgar has asked her to marry him. Before she will divulge her answer, she wants Nelly's opinion. Appalled with Catherine's earlier behaviour, Nelly says Edgar is a fool to have asked her. Petulantly, Catherine admits that she has accepted his proposal. Aware that Catherine's feelings for Edgar lack sincerity, Nelly states her opinion. Catherine loves Edgar because he is handsome, rich, and adores her. What further problem can there be? With uncharacteristic candour, Catherine admits that her heart and soul tell her she is doing wrong. In truth, she concedes she loves Heathcliff. However, since Hindley has reduced him to servile status, marrying him would degrade her as well. Therefore she swears, quote, "He will never know how I love him, not because he's handsome, but because he's more myself than I am." Unquote. Unaware that Heathcliff has been eavesdropping on their conversation, the two women are startled when this last admission causes him to run outdoors. Catherine is convinced that he did not overhear her. Nelly, however, warns Catherine that marrying Edgar means that she and Heathcliff will have lost their friendship forever. Catherine replies that Edgar must learn to tolerate Heathcliff for her sake, and that by marrying him she can even help Heathcliff by using Edgar's money to remove him from Hindley's power. Nelly scoffs at this idea. Catherine, however, clings to the conviction that she can manipulate Edgar, since she and Heathcliff must remain inseparable. Quote, "Nelly, I am Heathcliff." Unquote. Heathcliff, however, does not return. In a raging thunderstorm, Catherine sends Joseph and Nelly to search for him, and when they fail to locate him, she scours the moors herself. Dripping wet, she sits up all night waiting for him, becoming dangerously ill with fever. At old Mrs. Linton's insistence, she is brought to the Grange to convalesce. She recovers, but both of Edgar's parents become ill and die within days of each other. Heathcliff still does not return. 3 years after his parents' deaths, Edgar brings Catherine to the Grange as his wife. At Catherine's insistence, Nelly accompanies her, forcing her to leave Hareton behind. Nelly breaks off her narrative here due to the late hour. Lockwood agrees to go to sleep now and hear more another time. Discussion and analysis. Many readers focus on Catherine's description in this chapter of her love for Heathcliff, since the depth of their feelings for each other is central to the novel. Indeed, Catherine notes the difference between the ordinary love a man and woman share and the intense bond which unites her with Heathcliff. Her love for Edgar, she declares, is, quote, "like foliage in the woods, time will change it," unquote, while her love for Heathcliff is an, quote, "eternal rock," unquote, invisible but essential to her existence. Her statement, quote, "I am Heathcliff," unquote, clearly expresses her belief that they share a soul. Nevertheless, Catherine is willing, for the sake of respectability, to degrade her true feelings and marry Edgar. The reader can interpret that Bronte's intention was to portray Catherine as a victim of her social class, which would have made marriage to Heathcliff impossible, forcing her to choose the socially acceptable Edgar. In any event, her overwhelming selfishness will not permit her to make a clean break. She is determined to have both men. Although some readers sympathize with Catherine's dilemma, others find her destructive in the pursuit of her desire. She will inevitably destroy something in either or both men. Heathcliff has already run away, while her presence at the Grange has already cost Edgar his parents. Chapter 10. Summary and Analysis. Summary. Lockwood has been recuperating for 4 weeks, and Mr. Kenneth does not anticipate him being allowed outdoors until spring. Heathcliff has been to visit. So grateful is Lockwood for the diversion, he decides not to mention Heathcliff's role in causing his illness. The visit reminds Lockwood that Nellie still owes him the next instalment of Heathcliff's story. He begs her to fill him in on how Heathcliff became educated and wealthy enough to have become a gentleman. Nellie cannot answer these questions and asks to be permitted to continue the story in her own fashion. Catherine is fond of Edgar and his sister, and since they extend themselves to please her, the marriage seems successful. One day, Heathcliff appears at the Grange after a 3-year absence, eager to see Catherine. Edgar is displeased to see the genuine joy with which Catherine greets Heathcliff, but she admonishes him to be friendly for her sake. Edgar is polite, but makes it clear to Heathcliff that he is welcomed as a childhood servant, nothing more. Amused by Edgar's strict adherence to conventional behaviour, and truly overwhelmed with her delight in seeing Heathcliff again, Catherine quarrels with Edgar once Heathcliff departs, to Nellie's astonishment, for Wuthering Heights. Complaining to Nellie that Edgar and Isabella are spoiled children, Catherine rebuffs her response that it is she who is the spoiled child. Their peaceful household is dependent on Edgar and Isabella indulging Catherine. Laughing, Catherine swears that Edgar loves her so much, even if she tried to kill him, he wouldn't try to retaliate. Nellie tartly suggests she learn to value her husband's adoration instead of ridiculing him. The talk turns to the surprising news that Heathcliff has taken up residence with Hindley, a sign to Nellie that Heathcliff is exhibiting a Christian show of forgiveness to his sworn enemy. However, Catherine informs her that Hindley has been losing money to Heathcliff while playing cards, and his gambling debts have made him susceptible to Heathcliff's offer to pay him well in exchange for lodging in close proximity to the Grange. Furthermore, Hindley has borrowed money from Heathcliff by pledging the Heights as security for his debts. Therefore, Nellie's assumption is quite correct. During Heathcliff's frequent visits, Isabella becomes irresistibly attracted to him. Edgar is horrified, not only to think of his sister degrading herself with such a questionable man, but of the thought that Heathcliff might inherit the Linton property should he and Catherine not produce a male heir. Edgar is convinced that Heathcliff has embarked on a deliberate campaign to marry Isabella to secure his fortune. Jealous of the attention Heathcliff pays Catherine, Isabella and she quarrel. Nellie advises Isabella to forget Heathcliff, quote, "a bird of bad omen," unquote. Catherine humiliates Isabella by telling Heathcliff of her infatuation. Encouraged by the opportunity to inherit Edgar's fortune through marriage to Isabella, despite the fact that he holds her in great contempt, the chapter ends with Heathcliff mulling over his next move and Nellie expressing her premonition that he is up to no good. Discussion and analysis. The theme of revenge resurfaces in this chapter as Heathcliff considers the benefits of marrying Isabella. Doing so will cause Edgar anguish, for he knows Heathcliff doesn't love his sister. Catherine will be punished for marrying Edgar instead of him, and most importantly, the possibility of inheriting the Linton fortune will make him financially capable of ruining Hindley. We also learn in this chapter how fragile the peaceful Linton household really is. Serenity is dependent on Edgar's willingness to accede to Catherine's wishes, a harmless enough situation until she demands Heathcliff's acceptance into their home. The reader is aware that Heathcliff's intentions are evil and self-serving. His newly acquired gentlemanly manners are as superficial as Catherine's ladylike behaviour. Heathcliff's true nature mirrors Catherine's. They are both selfish and determined to get what they want. Of Frances' condition. Despite her brave efforts, Frances soon dies, leaving Hindley disconsolate. Sinking into depression and alcoholism, Hindley takes no interest in Hareton, other than to object when his cries disturb him. While Hindley's dissipation worsens and his treatment of Heathcliff grows even crueler, Heathcliff takes a perverse pleasure in watching Hindley deteriorate. In fact, the entire household completely falls apart. All the servants, except for Nellie and Joseph, leave, and no one, not even... Chapter 8. Summary and Analysis. New character, Mr. Kenneth, the local doctor. Summary. It is now 1778. Nellie's work in the hayfield is interrupted by the news that Frances has just given birth to Hareton, although the doctor believes that Frances' chronic tuberculosis, foreshadowed by Nellie's mention of her coughing in Chapter 6, will shortly kill her. Rushing back to the house so that she can begin to care for the infant, Nellie finds both Hindley and Frances in desperate denial of Heathcliff. One afternoon when Hindley is away, Heathcliff ventures into the parlour to see Catherine. He appears to Catherine, who now holds different social standards, as unschooled and lacking in social graces. This makes her uncomfortable to see him and heightens her awareness of Edgar's suitability. When it becomes apparent that Heathcliff has no intention of leaving, she finally admits that she is expecting Edgar and suggests he leave to avoid Hindley's punishment. Heathcliff complains that she has been neglecting him for Edgar, showing her a calendar marked with the curate will visit. Catherine, however, has remained friendly with the Lintons and continues to visit them. She begins to, quote, adopt a double character, unquote, remaining unruly and wild at home, but at the Lintons' home she is a model young lady. At 15, she is the most beautiful girl in the countryside, and Edgar is smitten with her. Edgar prefers her to visit at the Grange rather than come to the Heights. Hindley's profligate reputation frightens him, and he remains disgusted by Catherine's friendship with the socially unacceptable many evenings she has spent with the Lintons. They exchange angry words, and as he leaves, Edgar enters. Ordered by Hindley to stay within earshot when Edgar visits, Nellie remains in the room, dusting. When she refuses Catherine's demand for her to leave, Catherine creates an outburst. Edgar is appalled to see Catherine pinch Nellie and then lie to him about it. Then, at the height of her tantrum, Catherine hits baby Hareton and then Edgar himself. Shocked to witness this unforeseen side of her nature, Edgar begins to leave